Hello, Way of the Rose community. I'm going to read the words of the Our Lady Speaks that I am going to share, and I will bring in some movement. And I realize that I have to use my phone because I can't minimize my screen when I'm recording. So here we go. So this is Our Lady Speaks, May 16th, 2020. And the photo is quite lovely. I believe it's a whale with the baby whale. And it says, what I am asking of you is what a parent asks of a child who is being taught to swim. First, they must learn to trust the water and know that its embrace will lift them up. Children are born knowing that they can float and need only lift their heads and move their arms and legs in order to swim. But through long ages, you have forgotten the lesson of this. You no longer remember the embrace of my body or natural buoyancy of those tears you call your oceans. Our Lady of Sorrows, I am sometimes called, but those sorrows are merely the waters that have passed through numberless eons and uncountable bodies on their path toward the sea. The dead buoy you up, embrace you, and sustain you. Their currents will carry you where you must go. As long as you presume to know the path forward, you will not be able to find the path or follow it. Knowing is not the same as remembering. The knowledge that will guide you through the trials you are currently entering is 1,000 fathoms deep. I am your mother who tell you these things. I tell you nothing but what is true. So there's so much in this reading that speaks to me, and I don't know if I can keep the phone open to bring it through, but as you know, a swimmer, just came out of the water, literally, and I also am a scuba diver and had an incredible dive this morning. So the first little piece of it is remembering ourselves as a child and trusting the embrace of the water. And it feels to me there's a trust in all the elements, that our mother wants us to be embraced by the elements. And of course, the elements have their dangerous pieces. We have to follow currents in the water. Occasionally, we do have to swim against the currents, of course, but there's something incredible about floating. And when I was a swim teacher many eons ago, I remember I was teaching. I noticed that children whose parents were afraid or didn't know how to swim, the children were more reluctant. But I also taught a class with some of these parents who had never been able to swim. And honestly, they thought I had a miracle when they learned to float. So I was helping them to trust that buoyancy in the water. So perhaps in your body, because we're, I don't know, 80 to 90% water. I mean, the figure is not important. It's just that the majority of our constitution is water. And if we can bring that understanding of the inner water and the inner currents, then often we can be in the outer currents and the outer chaos that sometimes happens. So if you want to move with me, you can always move sitting or standing, it's up to you. Just gonna put my camera down a little bit. And I want you just to start to just get into a little bit of rhythm and flow. And maybe you can begin to feel where in your body can you feel that watery nature of you. Can you just, if we just start to do these little shifts and articulations in the body, can you really find the flow and the currents? Because of course our fluid nature includes the blood, which has more of a rhythm like so. We have synovial fluid that, you see swimmers shake out their arms. They're trying to get that fluid going. We have cranial, the cranial, sacrocranial fluids that go in and out of the spine. So that's just a little bit of our fluid nature. So you could go into some rhythms like this, finding that fluid in your body. You can also imagine the fluid as the juiciness that goes through your whole body. And so if you get into that juiciness, and that's really starting to, get the joints into their articulation, can you feel how you can be supported? And the way that I sometimes think about the support is really trusting mama to really have our back, and that we can really soften our front body to be held in the back of the body. And that's where our floating can come in. I mean, if you're having trouble because your body, feels a little sore or stiff, maybe just use some fingers and hands to find that bit of floatiness in the body, which has a real lightness. It has a bit of what we call in space, in Laban analysis, indirectness, and what we call in time, a bit of sustainment. So you're really taking your time in this exploration to find that float. How can you feel? And if it helps you, everybody's different in their imagination, but if it helps you to imagine you're in the water. Now, if you're very fearful of the water, this may be much harder to do. So I encourage you to use what works for you. But if you're okay in the water, then you can really imagine yourself just allowing yourself to float, to really feel that suspension in the body, and that, maybe almost that laid backness in the water. And that's one of the things that I love about scuba diving. It's just that feeling of I'm flying through the water and I'm just supported in that buoyancy. And so we could look at buoyancy as a metaphor for, now I'm going to forget the word I wanted to. Resilience. How's that? We could feel into buoyancy as our resilience and trusting that mama has our back and will support us as we navigate the currents, and trust that the path is not linear and forward, but the path will unfold. That's why I love that Hail Lady full of moonlight. The stars are with thee. Blessed is your hand within the darkness. Blessed is your path beneath our feet. Holy Lady, Queen of the night, pray for us now and at the hour of our transformation. So how can you bring more buoyancy, more floatiness, more trust in the elements, trust in our mother that we can float and be carried and held, like in the fourth mystery. Fourth mystery in tonight's or today, whatever, is the joyful mysteries. So how can we be carried by our mama for our presentation? It's in all the mysteries, but today is joyful. So how can we be carried by mama? Just see if your body can really feel that floatiness. It may be that certain parts feel like they can't participate. But if you can allow that one part that's really willing to take on that buoyancy, that floating, that trusting the water, trusting the currents, and trusting that deep dive. I'm living here next to the deepest part called the Marianas Trench. And I know that that's a big metaphor for me in my deep diving into myself. And perhaps you can just start to slow this down. And then just notice if you can feel the currents inside. Can you feel your blood moving inside? Maybe you can feel your pulse a little bit. You can maybe feel your breath moving inside, because there's certainly water in the breath. Maybe you can just notice any other fluids in the body, in the tissues. Perhaps you just notice whatever current is in your body right now. And find a little conclusion with that movement or that inner processing. And I'm going to read that reading back to you again. So, again, it is Our Lady Speaks, May 16th, 2020. And we, of course, were in the first few months of the pandemic, weren't we? Or the first half of the year of the pandemic. What I am asking of you is what a parent asks of a child who is being taught to swim. First, they must learn to trust the water and know that its embrace will lift them up. Children are born knowing that they can float and need only lift their heads and move their arms and legs in order to swim. But through the long ages, you have forgotten the lesson of this. You no longer remember the embrace of my body or natural buoyancy of those tears you call your oceans. Our Lady of Sorrows, I am sometimes called, but those sorrows are merely the waters that have passed through numberless eons and uncountable bodies on their path towards the sea. The dead buoy you up, embrace you, and sustain you. Their currents will carry you where you must go. As long as you presume to know the path forward, you will not be able to find that path or follow it. Knowing is not the same as remembering. The knowledge that will guide you through the trials you are currently entering is 1,000 fathoms deep. I am your mother who tell you these things. I tell you nothing but what is true. And thank you for moving and listening to me. Many, many blessings in your life. And so much love and following your heartfelt desire.